poems appear in over 70 anthologies globally, including the Vagabond Lunar Collection, which will be archived on the Moon with the Lunar Codex Project. Lang was also recently published in California Quarterly, Maintenance, and Sassoon Valley Review. As winner of the 2023 Curbside Haiku Contest, her haiku was displayed across downtown Tulsa and is archived at the Woody Guthrie Center. She's a member of the Revolutionary Poets Brigade and a two-time Woody Guthrie Poet. Find her online at poetebook.com. D.L. Lang, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to read in such a beautiful place. All of these poems come from my latest book, which is called Fighting the Solar System. Unfortunately, they're currently on a UPS truck to my house, destined to arrive tonight. So I don't have any with me. But I do have some buttons and little flyers on the table over there that you're welcome to grab for free, and that has more information. And also, if you're a Grateful Dead fan, I'm doing a Grateful Dead anthology, so hit up my website and there's submission details there. So.
I got it, yeah.
Thanks. This poem is called Romancing the Hobo, and it appears in Sparring Artists. If only love could pay the bills, we'd be as rich as they come. If only we could get by on thrills, we'd hop the next train to freedom. This world runs on greed and war, like we all forgot what love is for. We must believe it will work out. When love is involved, there is no doubt. If only love could heal our hearts, no two friends would ever part. If only love became our compass, just imagine what we could accomplish. Imagine what the world could be if people were allowed to love freely. We can see beyond our differences. We all build upon our acts of kindness. If only love could furnish a home, not a soul would remain alone. If only love could ignite our dreams, happiness would be closer than it seems. We spin the world a new direction with every single act of affection. It's the human condition to desire connection. If only love could pay for meals, we'd never starve for company. If only love our hearts could heal, the truths we would finally see. So I've been writing a lot of poetry that's inspired by historical figures and events, and D. Allen said this was his favorite poem of mine. It's about Martin Luther King Jr. It's called MLK. A preacher, a prophet, a king, standing up for the downtrodden, inspiring thousands to rise up in unity against hatred embedded systemically. His visionary life was cut short on the balcony of the Lorraine, but hatred can never extinguish his flame, for his words still ring true today. This king shall always reign among those who seek lasting change. It is up to you and me to bring forth a world free from war, hunger, racism, and poverty. We must carry on the legacy. We must believe deeply in the dream. We must choose the path of progress. We must march with our neighbors. We must all learn a better way. We must join together in song. We must plant the seeds of hope for better days in a world gone wrong. We must plant the seeds of justice. We must grow the fruits of peace. We must water the trees of equality. They shall blossom into an era where humans are finally free. One day, it shall no longer be just a dream. This poem is called The Dreamers, and it was inspired by wandering around the Grammy Museum, which at the time had an exhibit filled with protest music. I am a poet surrounded by the spirits of singers who I've never met. Melodies float through the air encased in question marks. Their simple album covers preserve the heart of humanity. Their instruments hang on the walls, but they shall never be silenced. Their hand-scrawled lyrics carve bursts of righteous fire, calling towards the future, reaching through the darkness, traveling time and space, shining a light on the past, daring you to hope, demanding that you see reality past the haze of propriety. Each chorus sparks bravery, each note roars out justice, each word demands peace. Having changed you so much that you think you might change the world, the rhythms eventually move you to your feet and out into the streets, surrounded by thousands, protest signs rising sky high like prayers in the wind, confidently demanding that things change. And now, all you have to do is follow the music, and it will lead you home. This next poem is about Bob Dylan, which I'd like to dedicate to my husband, who's wearing a Bob Dylan t-shirt. Ode to Bob Dylan. You who were baptized in the spirit of Guthrie, dared to trek towards his heroes through the snow and onto Greenwich stages, chaperoned Arlo in a sea of folkies, hobo's myth turned on and plugged in, got the Beatles on the grass, hip to prophetic whisperings, static bard recording America's injustices, translated into poetry written on a mirror, weaving vocal love with Joan Baez. You who found your way into my parents' vinyl stash and into my ears at 13. The truth like a sunbeam echoing into the ether, played on repeat, bursting forth and blowing my mind. Folky poet outlaw on a spiritual quest, rising up above the rest to yell the truth beyond the chatter of the mainstream. Your treasures landed in Tulsa, where I gaze at your process, walking in the footsteps of greatness, music flowing, exhaling awe and ecstasy. So if you know anything about me, I'm a wee bit obsessed with Woody Guthrie right now. I've traveled all over the country looking for various sites associated with him, and this is my kind of love poem for Woody Guthrie. Born on the revolutionary anniversary of Bastille Day, you who arose out of the flames of Okima, a bright light shining through the dust storms of Pampa, sang with Seeger the almanacs at Leadbelly, stood in solidarity with farm workers and the poor, donned a uniform to drive out the fascist menace, and rode the rails in search of a better America. You who wrote and sang out the naked truth of the plight of hobos, deportees, and refugees, the courage of union workers who stood without fear, and the beauty of the land and its resources. You whose lyrics resurrected the ghost of Tom Joad, who honored the outlaws who stole back some wealth, the heroism of Miss Pavlichenko and the Maccabees, calling out the treason of Lindbergh and the bigotry of Coghlan, and dreamed of burying fascists and dancing on Hitler's grave. You who sang out in favor of what this world could be, questioning the false promises of politicians, demanding that music hold a greater purpose. Your spirit lives on, singing out for justice, awakening and educating the masses with melody, inspiring countless others to rise up for what is right. As fascism once again rears its ugly head across the world, we the people need to walk the path you trod, set aside our personal imperfections and stand united. Make your dream a reality before it all comes to naught. I'm going to read a labor poem since Labor Day is in a couple weeks, and this particular poem appears in the anthology Working Man's Hand, which is by the Woody Guthrie Poets, and it's currently behind the glass at the Woody Guthrie Center. And I premiered this at the Woody Guthrie Folk Fest in Okima in 2023, accompanied by David Amram on piano. And when I introduce this poem, I always feel like I'm trying to say, how many times can I say Woody Guthrie in one sentence? And maybe about 5. So, together we will rise. From the indigenous workers robbed of their land, to the black workers forced to pick and build this land, to the Latino migrants kept from traveling this land, to the Chinese workers who built our railroads, to the Japanese workers unfairly interned, to the Arab workers falsely accused of violence, to the Jewish workers who escaped fascist hands, to the Irish workers who fled a divided homeland, to the queer workers forced to hide who they love, to the trans workers forced to hide their true souls, to the women workers forced to labor in their homes, to the children who work for low wages in sweatshops, to the working poor forced to live in outright squalor, to the homeless people who must beg for their dollar, to the disabled workers who are grossly underpaid, to the incarcerated workers merely seeking mercy and freedom, to the brave union workers who died in labor struggles, to the workers injured by war, police, and the draft, we have so much in common with one another. One day we'll unite to take back what is rightfully ours from those who have exploited, bombed, and divided the people. For centuries now, the super rich have committed a great evil. When we get together, there's no stopping what's in store. On that great day, all of us will settle the score, flipping this world together for justice and peace once more. This poem appears in last year's Revolutionary Poets Brigade anthology, Healing a Fractured World, and it's called We Must Pick Up the Pieces. We must pick up the pieces of the dreams our ancestors left behind when they fought to change the world. We must pick up the pieces of love and carry them in our hearts so that it may spread to all of humanity. We must pick up the pieces of this broken world and reassemble it into a mosaic of great beauty. We must pick up the pieces of work unfinished and carry forth the vision that things will change for the better. We must pick up the pieces of this union, rising up proudly together for as long as it takes, so that humanity is assured a future greater than anything we have ever seen. This poem appeared in the People's Tribune. It's called Who, and it's against war in the draft. Who will be left to care for the elderly after the doctors have all donned uniforms? Who will be left in your congregation after you have deceived your faithful adherents into murdering their neighbors? Who will be left to teach after the teachers have replaced the truth with propaganda? Who will be left to write your victory songs once all the artists have been executed? Who will be left to grow the food when all the farmers have traded in their tractors for tanks? Who will be left to paint the houses once the soldiers have sprayed the walls with bullets and the world has been dyed in blood? Who will be left to pave the roads after the construction workers have put down their hammers and picked up rifles? Who will be left to birth children after all the parents realize their offspring's only fate is to die in battle? Who will be left to bury the dead once the last missile sounds and the last human falls? Was it worth it? Since we're in the month of August, and on August 6th, 78 years ago, this country dropped 2 atom bombs on Japan. I wrote this for the Hiroshima Day anthology, which is published by Moonstone Press. It's called Nucleomytophobia, which means the fear of nuclear annihilation. America loves to point the finger at other nations, yet our own history bears critical examination. Japanese Americans were imprisoned merely for existing, punished for the actions of their nationalist cousins. This is racism in its purest manifestation, when the only crime is guilt by association. The warmongers will stop at nothing, for human life means nothing to them. Using any irrational justification, they kill and imprison innocents who were never responsible for the actions of governments. This country dropped the bomb not once, but twice on the Japanese. 250,000 people were killed by Fat Man and Little Boy, such cutesy names given to incredible evil. And yet, this nation continues to make them. Testing poisoned another Asian nation, destroying their land with radiation, forcing the Marshallese people into migration. Nucleomytophobia passes through the generations. Children hide under their desks and families build bunkers, as if that could spare them from complete annihilation. Tell me, when will humanity finally use our intelligence for the betterment of all nations rather than lusting after devastation? This will be my last poem. So, in 2017, a year ago, or in 2017 in August, the Unite the Right rally happened in Charlottesville. And in 2023, my former hometown of Enid, Oklahoma, decided that they were going to elect a Nazi to their city council. so I became involved in the movement to get him out of there. And this is the poem about that. It's called, "That Time I Went Back to My Hometown to Fight a Nazi." I suppose I'm the very definition of what they're paranoid about. A Jewish leftist who wants to make the world a better place for every person of every race. A fascist on city council is a disgrace. When your hometown elects a fascist, you learn who your real friends are. Some folks will smile right in your face, but privately vote to throw you to the wolves. I went from agitating and educating in the comments section to flying thousands of miles, speaking out at City Hall in the blazing summer heat, to freezing my fingers off holding a sign for a Republican? An anomaly for someone like me, but it's a pretty low bar to ask your public servants not to be a fucking Nazi. Enid folks decided to unite against hatred, setting aside our differences to organize. Young and old, left and right, black and white, former city officials and former residents alike, all pledged to join in the good fight, peacefully resisting the local fascist takeover. When justice came calling, we refused to yield, speaking out at every city council meeting against this poisonous ideology of hatred, exposing this councilman's bigoted views. Month after month, the people stood tall, demanding representation, calling more people into action, hitting the streets, blaring righteous bullhorns, flying anti-fascist signs, raising the banner of love. Our message spread across the globe. We refused to cower from intimidation, refusing to be silent for the sake of our neighbors. Apathy is just as dangerous as complicity. We all gathered at Jezebel's, indulged in wine, and waited for the returns to come in. Would Klansmen, once again, march in downtown Enid like they did 100 years ago? Or would the voters choose to remove this bigoted clown? The atmosphere was filled with the melodies of truth, as protest songs from Woody Guthrie to Nina Simone to the Muslims and the Dropkick Murphys rose up into the night, filling the downtown with hope, generations pledging to continue the fight. The whole world was watching the vote. We loudly chanted to the press, "Fuck Nazis." As the voters swept him into the dustbin of history, we all raised our fists and joined in a chorus of, "Judd, we just replaced you." Grateful that the voters said no, we'll remain vigilant. For all you fascists who've got to go. One down, many more to go. Thank you.